And with me and Heath tonight are Bill Frye, Johnny Virgin, Edwin Wells. We're going to be talking to them tonight about some of their past racing experiences in the late model world and other classes. And we want to thank our sponsors tonight, Chambers Bank, who has 26 locations in Arkansas. We appreciate them coming on board. True Grit Auction Services over in Dardanelle, recently voted best of the best in the River Valley, Western Petroleum Company. And True Grit and Shaw Race Cars. Again, can't forget Shaw Race Cars up in Batesville, Arkansas. So, Heath, what have you got this week to lead off with?
Well, they had a lot of good racing down at Centerville this weekend.
They did.
Drag racing. Had a big turnout. So
I believe Joe Lawyer out of Joplin, Missouri won. And we were in Stratton, Arkansas last week, and John Norman was the runner-up in that event this weekend from Stratton. So congratulations to John and all the guys up at Stratton. And great show up there with Tracy and Tony Rogers and Danny Rader last week. So anything you know of coming up?
not right off the top of my head. I mean, we had the races that we had that knew were coming up have been canceled. So
That's true. So
we're
at Centerville.
Centerville,
Yeah.
the only one that I knew that was coming up in short, pretty quick, but it's been canceled. So
How about letting me know one weekend? I'd like to come.
Okay.
Y'all race any? You brother?
We do some. Right now, we're just he's busy with the COVID situation, and we'll try to get going here in a few months.
I'd like to watch go with y'all sometime to the race.
Okay. We'll do that.
well, I know that you're working on a car.
No, I'm not.
Well, you're wanting to get a car fixed and going about, your drag car a little bit. But what you need to do is you need to talk to Frye, because he's become a drag racer now, so he can probably teach you a thing or two from my understanding.
He might.
You gotta remember, I really suck at driving.
Well, there was a guy that made an offer to a friend of mine to work on my car labor-free.
Labor-free.
Yeah.
Was that
Well,
me?
call him name.
Was that me?
No, that was not you. He's sitting pretty close to me over here.
Labor-free.
But after he looked at the car, I don't know if he got scared or what, but he never called me back.
No.
Is he afraid of rats?
We're not scared. Just finishing up a couple other cars, and hopefully you'll still want to do that. So
Oh, I've got a lot of ideas and a lot of projects.
I understand.
And this last 3 weeks there at the shop, we've been cleaning out a lot of my ideas and projects.
Well, I hope that's not one of them.
No,
Okay.
no, it's not in the race shop anymore. We put it in one of the storage facilities.
Okay.
Now that Jack has moved his chassis building operation into the shop, he is in the truck shop, what the truck shop used to be at my shop now.
Okay.
He's building chassis. He's building the IMC stock car chassis.
I was not aware of that.
Yes, yes. When he left GRT, he and Zach came over there and opened their business there for a little while. It's just a place for him to start out. He's adding on his shop at his house, and maybe, they're hoping 3 or 4 months, probably 6 months, he'll be able to move it over there. And he's just building chassis there is all he's doing. But they're next door. They're actually where the car was sitting at. You wouldn't know the place now.
Okay.
There's one race car, a black truck, a 72, and the SSR over there, and that's the only cars there is on that side now.
Well, we certainly wouldn't recognize it.
Well, we've been cleaning up my place for 3 weeks now.
That your old drag car, that's really a piece of Arkansas drag racing history, and needs to be put back out there.
Yes, yeah.
What year
It's
did
been
you
around
run that?
for a long time. I bought that when I was 16 years old.
Oh, that's old.
It's pretty old. Yeah, I've had it a long time.
You gotta put the 4-speed back in.
Got automatic in it now. Big block automatic. Power glide car. Yeah. It's a lot more fun with 4-speed, but it tears up a lot more.
We were actually talking last week in Stratton about the possibility of 4-speed in that car.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because those guys up there, they're big 4-speed guys. So
Well,
In the four-speed.
that's all I raced for years
The
and years and
four-speed
years.
class is really growing in popularity, and it's an excellent
Yeah.
idea for that
Yeah.
car, so.
Yeah. Well, I quit about the time all the electronics got popping. I just got tired of racing against electronics, you know? It's just hard to do. Or it was for me. I raced, I guess started when I was, probably started street racing at 14. And like I said, bought that whenever I was 16. That old car's been around.
It has. I remember it when I was a small kid.
What
funny.
you raced before that, the wagon?
Oh, I raced, I bought a 71.
Red
Well, actually, yeah.
And I still have a wagon too.
He had a 55 wagon from
Yeah.
kindergarten
No,
And I
on.
still have it.
We
Yes,
thought you'd
indeed.
been a Western flyer.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got a
there
red
you go.
wagon.
No.
Yeah, we did race them off the hill, but I cheated. I built a big heavy wooden cart. It's faster than wagons. But, I bought a 71 Mach 1 Mustang right there along that time. You know, I had a lot of drag cars back then. And I dragged it for a long time on the street and everything. First thing I ever went to Carlisle in was a 67 Chevelle. And I had a restricted driver license. And you get them when you're 14. So I was about 15, maybe 16 when I first drag raced at Carlisle. They didn't care how old you was, you just had to have a driver's license. So that was the first time I ever drag raced on the strip was there. But the 71 Mach 1 was a 351 Cleveland 4-speed car. And out of the few things I ever sold, that was one of them. And I look back now and wish I'd kept that car.
Think Ed ever sold anything.
Well, I don't sell much. But I have, y'all be proud of me, I've sold quite a bit of stuff this year.
And in talking about the drag racing, we get back into y'all three and stock car racing, which was late models that y'all used to travel all over the country and drive. Now we know.
I started late. I was 30, let's see, 38, 39, somewhere along in there maybe. Well, it was 98. So, well, no.
Well, that was about the time Frye was fixing to quit.
He was, yeah. He hadn't quit. He was still at the shop behind Joe's there. I met Bill when he was actually painting his truck, getting it ready to paint. I got to be privileged enough to sand around some of the rivets on it. Believe you me, there's a lot of rivets on that truck. Helped him put a clutch in it, and it just met him.
Now,
That's how I
is this the hauler that you're talking about?
Yes, his truck,
the one
the hauler.
the one that Johnny keeps telling us about.
No, that wasn't the slow one.
No, it wasn't the slow one.
No, no.
Okay.
I told him about the slow one. It would keep up with a school bus if it made a lot of stops.
I ain't no lie, it took me 10 years after selling it for my right knee to get to where didn't hurt all the time from holding it to the floor.
What type of truck was it?
It's a C50 Chevy that I put when I bought it off Garrison, it had a 307 2-barrel and a 4-speed. And I put a 427 truck motor that Steve Sanders in Missouri built, a 5-speed overdrive, and a 2-speed rear axle in it. And then it would run 75 or 80 on
Downhill,
downhill and stop in 3 miles
sometimes.
sometimes. I went through more than one stoplight with both feet on the brake pedal and one on the horn, hoping they'd get out of the way.
First toter home S&S ever made.
Yeah, that's the first one.
First one S&S ever made.
I sold it to a friend of mine in Muskogee, and Verdon said, "I can't believe he still likes you."
Yeah, I'm sure he's still mad.
It was probably the first time he turned a tail swing, slapped the side of the car. You don't tell about that one?
No, we
We don't tell about that. We don't tell about the night Melly went to run Bill down, trying to get him to stop.
I need it out of the pits.
Yeah.
Not much you need to leave.
Yep.
Where, about what year was it that y'all was really out hitting the road and traveling a lot?
98, 99.
98, 99. So I run for Rookie of the Year in Hagerstown in 99.
What year did you win?
96.
Like I said, I come along, it was 98 whenever I got my first late model. So I'd been, what, 31, Melanie. I said 38, but it's been 31, 57, yeah. Mm.
What,
Anyway.
what was it like on the Habitat series? I mean, you hear a lot about it, you hear a lot about Smalley that run it.
Well, Burton ran for Rookie of the Year in '96, and the three that were running for it, only one of them had all their hair. I don't know where they come up with Rookie of the Year when they done it. But Randall, Chuck, and Burton was both half bald headed then, and I think Lee J's the only one that had a full head of hair, and he was white headed.
I know you forgot about Bub.
I forgot about Bub running for Rookie of the Year.
Yes,
Bub McCool ran
yes.
for Rookie of the Year, yeah.
And we're not for sure he had all of his teeth.
Probably did.
But that was a series that kind of took off from about here back to the East Coast, or
It was
what was
mainly
the
based,
region on that?
it was based around Atlanta,
Yeah,
because that's where the Swims was that kind of really got it going. It was based out of that area. A lot of the races started out, you pretty much had to go to Atlanta, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama to race it at all.
Yeah. Our joke was every week, which way you turn this week in Nashville.
You turned
Right or left?
right or left or went north.
Yeah.
You turned at Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about earlier this week about y'all running this. It seemed like I remember reading Stock Car magazine one time. There's some results, and I remember your name, Edwin, from I think Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oh, Lord. I don't have the memory these two guys sitting by me here have. We raced at Hagerstown, yes, we did.
But I mean, to travel, that far, even
Oh,
back then
yeah,
from here in central Arkansas, that's,
Hagerstown's a different world from
yeah.
It is.
Yes.
It definitely is, yeah.
I won a 10 to win at Hagerstown.
Did you really?
First time I ever set foot in the place.
Tell us about that.
Actually, I raced another. They had a limited race on a Thursday night, and I drove another guy's car in the limited deal. I don't even remember how we did, 5th, 10th, something like that. I think they actually broke. I don't remember. And then the next night it was a Habitampa deal. I'm pretty sure it was a Habitampa deal, but it may have been a non-sanctioned deal that night. No, I think I wasn't. I remember Moyer pushed with about 5 laps to go, and I just drove by and went on. He pushed coming off the corner, his rubber down one lane. And we won the 10 to win that night. I don't remember if it paid, I think it paid 20 the next night. I don't remember who won. But it was a different racetrack. It was
Flat,
flat,
big.
old fairgrounds type racetrack with a river right behind it.
Well,
But now it just, the Northeast is a different place. That's the first time I'd ever been up there.
we were up there, was when we went to Rock at that time, you took me by Pennsboro.
Yeah.
When you used to have the World 100.
And it was shut down now.
Oh,
It was shut down.
Dirt Track World Championship.
World Championships, that it? Now guys, you'll see a lot of stuff at dirt tracks. That's the only one I ever seen you raced across 2 concrete bridges, weren't there? Yeah. 2 concrete bridges on this racetrack.
I always said Pennsboro was as close to racing on a road course as you could get on dirt.
And there was some bridge flank bleachers. It was in between 2 hills, and they just cut the trees off, and they put the bridge flanks on top of the trees down through there for bleachers. And like I said, I was never there during the race. We went up there and looked at it. And Bill was telling about after one of the races, they'd all sitting out there with their guns and stuff, and they'd just shoot their guns off up in the air and everything.
Oh yeah, they burn. They'd be 6 or 8 of them old fiberglass outhouses. They burn into the ground every Saturday night before the race. They'd be a smoldering pile of poop right there the next day.
And a coonskin hat was mandatory.
Yeah.
Now, that's the kind of stuff that went on up in that part of the world.
But you talk about kind of a primitive facility, but it drew all the best drivers in the United States there.
50,000 to win.
I told them it was the most primitive racetrack in the country and had TV cameras.
Yeah.
No lights, raced in the daytime.
Yeah, that was a different.
I don't think they had enough grandstands for 100 people.
No, they didn't.
You know, there was the
I'm sure they just sat on the
But
side
if
of
you
the
look
hill.
at all the pictures,
Well, there's people all over
it's
the
packed.
hillside.
There's.
They go across the highway, up on the hillside, across the highway from the backstretch. They just send people over there to collect money off people. If you're sitting up there on the hill, they'd collect a pass for going to the race.
Wow.
Racing's changed a lot in our lifetime.
The habit Tampa there at Atlanta,
Mhm.
the tracks there, South Carolina. You said what were the tracks like at most of those places?
Red clay,
Oh,
red and white walls. That's the main thing you remember over there.
Sandy red clay. Verdon went to practice one night at, what was that place? Fayetteville, South Carolina.
North Carolina.
North Carolina, and they had at that time they was debating whether you could run a wide right rear, a W right rear tire, or a narrow
Economy.
economy, a regular economy tire, or a W tire, which is a wider tire. And Verdon called me after practice, and I said, "How was it?" Oh, he said, "It's everything you expected it to be." Yeah, I said, he said, "You can't run that wide tire." And I said, "They're not going to let him run that wide tire." He said, "No," he said, "the grease is there after you get it in it." It was one lane right around the bottom.
That's a pretty narrow racetrack.
We started the feature, and it was me and Wendell on the front row. Wendell was on the pole, and Johnny was second row inside, and Clint Smith was second row outside. And we were on the front straightaway, they was introducing us, and Clint came up to Johnny. And he said, "Hey, Cat, you know when we get to that first corner, I'm turning left." Johnny said, "Okay." They got to the first corner, Clint turned left, Johnny spun him out and just kept going. After the races, Clint came over bad, boy, he's bad. Clint came over and said, "I told you I was turning left." Johnny said, "I didn't say you, I was letting off." Let him in. And I followed Wendell for 100 laps. I fell in behind him and he followed him.
And we need to say, Wendell Wallace was supposed to join us tonight, but he's had some medical issues he's recovering from, and couldn't make it tonight. We'll talk to him sometime later in the year. But I mean, you talk about all the guys all the big names that travel at that time. Who was the toughest out there during that time frame?
Blomquist.
Yep, he was there then.
Lundquist, Moyer, Ronnie Johnson was tough.
Ronnie was tough. And then one time, Wendell was about the only one in the country that could run with Blomquist at one time.
Yeah.
When we first started in started running in that area a lot was 93, 94, and it's pretty much me or Blomquist when one 2 out of 5 of them probably. Well, we raced each other hard. He was who I felt I had to race when I got there.
He was the one you had to outrun.
Yeah. What year did we go? Was the World that you buried the hatchet, or was it the?
That didn't need to be brought up.
we done got into that once or twice, I think. But,
Already talked about that one.
well,
Well, now this was the first time I got to go to Eldora. That was the reason I was saying something
Right.
about it. And that was pretty amazing. Of course, Bill told me, he said, "Now we've got to get up there and you got to get there the night before." And I think Barnhart went with us that time, didn't he?
Probably.
And you got in up there and you got in line to be teched in the next morning. And if you were far enough up in line, you got to pit down in the infield. But if you weren't, you put it up around the outside edge. So that was really,
It was important to
it
get
was
in there.
important to get in the infield. But of course, once you got in, you couldn't get
you
out.
couldn't get out.
You stayed until it was time to go. I never was eye-timey about the middle of however many cars. There's 200 cars right time in the 100th, I never was good enough to get in the show, but it was really exciting and interesting to be there.
Johnny
That was-
liked running the wall there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that cushion.
I'd say, "Johnny, you need to be on the cushion." "I'm on it."
The cushion looked like a
Yeah.
2x4
Yeah,
laying out there.
the cushion wasn't a foot wide, but that's where you spaced at. That's where you spaced
If you
at.
drove
And if you-
into it
and
hard
if you-
enough, wide open, if you jumped the cushion,
Yeah.
the front wheel just kind of go up there and scrape the wall and turn you back down.
Really. Just never hit hard enough to tear
Well, if
anything
you went
up,
in,
really.
if you went in like Johnny and slid up to it, you knocked the wall down.
You had to
If
go
you
in
was
right
on-
again.
If you drove in on it, it just kind of turned on that wall and go.
I never hit the wall there.
Just scraped it a little bit.
I didn't get that high up. I was scared.
I was running second in the dream, thinking I was gonna pass John Gill. I was right there. It's like, I got a chance to win that. Man, we was running good, and I got in there and jumped the cushion and hit the wall. And I thought, man, I've got a flat. And I ran about another 10 laps, fell back to third or fourth, and pulled in, told him I needed a right rear tire, and I come into the right rear tire, ain't flat. Said the spoiler's knocked off. And he did it, when I hit the wall, it tore the spoiler off, because when I still had one piece spoilers, next year I went back, I made the short section of spoiler on the right rear, so when you tore it off, you didn't lose the whole spoiler.
The whole thing.
I made about 6-inch section. I didn't want to lose that much spoiler.
Right.
I didn't even want to lose a foot, but you knocked it off about every time it was there.
Well, the rest of that race, how you say you fourth at that time without that spoiler, where did you go?
Oh, I was going straight to the
Straight
back.
to the back.
They duct taped it back up, and I kind of held my own for another 20 or 30 laps at the back of the pack. But if you lose a spoiler there, you're done. If you knock a hole in the nose, if you cave a nose in it, Eldora, you're done. It's so
The
fast, the
air
air
on
is
them,
really
on
big.
them cars, we didn't realize as much back then as they do now. You notice they've got the noses dipped and everything. They're real aerodynamic. As people have figured it out. Back then, we knew it, but didn't know what to do about it.
Well,
Because we
that's-
always knew if you knocked the nose off, you know, it was bad. You know?
Well, everybody, wonders about them late models hiking up and rolling over so far now. And a lot of people for a year or two thought it was just the fact that the cars were rolling so hard. It's getting that spoiler in
That
the air.
spoiler up in there on the back.
That's all that's about, is getting the spoiler up in the air.
That nose down and that spoiler up.
It just makes a big wedge out of the car and plants it into the ground. It's like if you get behind, and that's why they don't race that well. If you get behind somebody, they knock the air off your nose,
Nose.
you push and can't get around. It's like you gotta race a
There's
different
no
line.
air behind them. They've got such a big wall back them up so high.
What about racing in the Ohio area, that region of the country there? What was late model racing like up there?
I just raced at Portsmouth, which is southern Ohio,
Right.
Kentucky.
Which that track's right there on the river and floods.
Oh yeah, it's underwater. Every time we go, they said it's been underwater. I show pictures of it underwater all winter. And I forget the old man's name. You remember that guy that ran
Yes,
that
I
place?
remember him.
Yeah, he reminded me of the circus guy.
That's what I said.
What was
They've
that
got
guy?
very-
Barnum and Bailey, the one.
I can't
What
remember
was
this.
his name?
I can remember well.
He'd say, look out for a really big show, and he'd go on, he'd tell you he was a good old guy.
I can't do that.
I raced there. Parkersburg up there was Ohio, but it was really West Virginia. I mean, it was West Virginia, but it's right across from Ohio. And the only other one I raced in Ohio was Eldora.
You just hear a lot about dirt late model racing in there, people like Jack Boggs and people like that. Just wonder what it was like racing with those guys.
I went by where Boggs lived, and he was Kentucky hillbilly. He was Kentucky.
Grayson, Kentucky.
We cut through there once going somewhere, cut up through there, and that thing
Probably
got
a
one of the places.
parkway.
I think that's where you told me that we're gonna have to stop and pour water on the steering box to cool it off.
Yeah, it was what, Parkersburg, West Virginia?
Parkersburg.
Parkersburg, yeah. That's where we had a joke over there. Your crew could go get a cheeseburger and eat a cheeseburger before you make a lap over there. No track was big.
It's big.
You just down the straightaway and you're just sitting there. And you're looking around more or less, I'm serious, the old track was that big.
You didn't go the first time I went.
No.
First time I went, you were going, whoa, 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 all the way down the straightaway at 140 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yep. Now, what's the one?
Was it bigger than the El Paso track?
Yes.
I was never at the El Paso track.
But El
'Cause, I mean, it was
Paso-
that was a pretty big track too, really.
Ain't it, wasn't it,
Fast.
didn't they call that 5/8 over there?
There was 5/8 around the bottom and it was 3/4 around the top.
Yeah. That's a big track.
It was big.
The local hero had a 600 and some inch big block
Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile motor.
Wow.
That Smith.
The track champion or whatever.
Steve Smith. Yep, that's what he had in. And that you need. I went out I ran right in the black area, right where it looked like the groove was, and I ran in there and I made me 2 laps, and I thought, yeah, I'm okay. And I rolled up to the pits and they looked at me.
It
What's
just
wrong? And they said,
second and a half off.
and I was terrible in the heat race. They said, what are you going to do for the consi? And there's 2 guys right beside us in an open trailer and an old wreck of a car. Didn't act like they knew nothing. And they pulled the front shocks off from it and they looked across at each other and they just traded and put them back on. And the guy made the feature.
Hey, it's like we've always said, better be lucky than good anytime, ain't you, Dave?
I watched him run the feature.
A lot of luck, Bob.
You ran second to Wendell there, didn't you?
No, I run third one night and Wendell run fourth. And I had a 477 big block and Wendell had a 360.
I knew something like that. Yep.
I can't remember who won that. I think Hartman won it.
Yeah, he
It
did.
was really good.
He was faster.
It was really good there.
He was good.
When you were on that Habitampa deal and like I said, moving from state to state, did the local guys, were they better at some tracks, obviously, or did the touring guys, did they have an advantage?
We had an advantage. We could kill them.
They'd show up, they'd be 1 or 2 regional guys, I call, not really
Yeah.
locals, but regional
I
guys.
should have said regional.
That you'd have to race.
But we'd run 100-lap races, and they would be good for 30 laps, then we'd kill them.
The thing that bothered us, myself so much, with the Habitampa series, my hauler that we ran was a stacker, 2 cars up top, had Peterbilt, with living quarters in it. We could haul 42 mounted tires. We'd find ourselves at the racetrack dismounting and mounting a different tire.
We
There
had,
was too many choices for tires, and that was, a lot of the times, the guys that were out running, even the guys with the series, they was on the right tire. If you was on the wrong tire, I don't care how fast you were, you weren't gonna look good. It made no difference. Tires was a big thing back then. There was just too many choices.
we
Of course,
had,
being with Bill, that helped me a lot, because I'd have been out there not knowing anything, hadn't been for that.
I think my hauler had hauled 26 tires in the racks. I had another cart that hauled 10 or 12, and we put 8 in we put some more racks in between those tire racks that snap in, and we could put another 8 in there, and we'd mount and dismount tires every
All
night.
the time.
So what was the tire bill for a season?
I don't know, if you kept track of that stuff, you probably wouldn't have done it tomorrow. Jack told us once that he went and helped Richardson in Florida do tires. He said, and I was grooving tires. And he said, I grooved more tires in 2 weeks than I did the whole season last year for myself. And he said, I asked Richard, that's been a year or 2 ago, he said, how much, what's your tire budget? He said, it's like 200,000. He said, for a year? And he said, yeah. He said, and he said, we use a lot of tires. What happens if you go over budget? He said, we get a bigger budget.
But back then, you're probably talking what a tire? How much was a tire probably back in those days?
I know what mine were,
How much is yours?
$80 a tire.
You was on a pretty good deal.
You got me
That
on
was
that.
a good deal.
You got me on that deal. We was getting from Pup.
But $80 a tire, for the whole season, the number of tires you carry.
Well, they race their doing about 120,
Yeah.
but most people pay for it.
And of course, and everybody out there knows that tires are, you can't win without tires. And if you're gonna go out and run a heat race, if you're gonna expect to compete in the end of the night, you changing tires every race.
Well, you might change tires 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just getting
Just to
ready
get-
for that
just to
race.
get ready for the feature.
Watching the
Right,
racetrack
watching it,
change.
yeah.
Change them
Before
and
the
then
heat
change
race.
them again before you go out, sitting there in the pits.
You gotta be the last guy to put yours on.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And
And
that's,
I ran more than one person out of my pit. Threatened to hit one with a jackhammer if you ever come back to my pits looking at the tires.
But
I mean, they would
it
come.
was that important with tires. And
We didn't
that.
cover
It
our
really
stuff
was.
up, and they felt like they could just come look at mine. I actually told Stevie Norris who worked for Moyer, I said, you come back looking at my tires again, that's like stealing from me, I'm gonna whack you with a jackhammer.
Well, I
And
was
he said,
at,
man, I'm just doing my job. And I said, your job's not to look at my tires unless you tell me what Billy's got on first. That didn't happen much. Me and Stevie were good friends and got
Yeah.
along after that. Yeah, and then, we was at Jackson, Mississippi, and McCreary's was really good there, the American Racer tire. McCreary before they was American Racers, and we were on them. And Barnhart was on them, and Barnhart was in front of me in a heat race. He was getting ready to go out, and Bloomquist had a kid working for him. He wasn't a kid, he's a man, named Raybo. And he was just with him part of the time off and on. I won't go into that. But he was there that night, and he walked up to Bloomquist's Barnhart's car, went trying to see what tires was on. And every time he'd been down, Barnhart would pull up a little bit so he couldn't look. And finally he snuck around, got to the left rear where Barnhart couldn't see him, looked at the tire. Seen what it was and squeezed on it, and he stood up and he looked at me and grinned. And he kind of walked towards my car, and I just motioned him over. And he walked up to the door, and I said, we was ready for the heat race, and I just grabbed him by the collar and punched him in the face and pulled him back out of the car. And we rolled out for the heat race. After the races, he come over to try for the heat race, he come over there and he goes, man, he said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make nobody mad. He said, I wasn't looking at your tires. I said, you was looking at his, and he had the same ones on I did. I said, don't do that. I said, you're out there trying to steal from us. Man, I was just doing my job. And I said, what's your job now? He said, not to mess with Bill Frye.
and more than one got that figured out through the years. They got it.
Yeah, there's a lot more than one.
You know, and that's the question that I've got right there for, and I've never asked Edwin, but y'all two, I mean, Bill telling his stories, and Johnny that never got mad at a soul racing. How did this friendship with y'all two be so good when Johnny never gets mad at nobody and Frye's
I just calmed him down.
I just feel like he was along to help my integrity.
That's what it was. Help make Bill look good.
But Jimmy Owens had a good comment though. He said, whatever, however mad you get, you need to forget it next straightaway. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Right, Ed?
That's right. Ain't no doubt about that. Jack has a saying now. Every time we go to one of these racetracks, we get mad, we're not ever coming back. You know how long not ever is?
It's a long time.
1 week.
1 week.
Yes,
Yeah,
1
I
week.
To say because
That's all it is 1 week.
I had a
And
promoter.
I hadn't
in
really
Florida-
thought about that much, but he's exactly right.
I had a promoter tell me once in Florida that never to a racers next Saturday night.
That's right. 1 week. That's all it is. 1 week.
Life in the electric chair.
Yep.
What, moving back closer to this part of the United States, and I want to throw a name out there, Larry Phillips. What was it like racing against Larry Phillips?
Larry was brutal.
He was mean.
He was brutal. Me and Terry were into it a lot when we first started. I think Larry really put a lot of pressure on Terry. Of course, Larry worked harder than anybody in racing. Larry didn't do nothing if he wasn't in racing. He worked on it night and day. So anything less than that was lazy to Larry. And he used me a lot as an example, I think, from what people told me. He'd tell Terry, hell, poor farmer down there is kicking your hind end. Well, and he ain't got nothing. Why can't you do nothing? I keep giving a lot. So me and Terry had a little friction on the racetrack. We raced pretty hard. And I'd done something to Terry. I don't know, we got into it somewhere. And we were at Lebanon, and it was a big race. I don't know whether it was USAC or something, in 87 or 8, 9. And I wasn't that good. And heat race, Larry lapped me. And he was winning this heat race, qualifying for this big race. He just comes in and door slams me like he was trying to pass me for the lead, just knocks me off the cushion, and went on just to show me he's good.
There's Larry.
I never walked around Larry.
Petrov said a new quarter panel on Larry's car had a life expectancy of 15 minutes.
He, definitely won a lot of races, in the region. And he just, always looked like he was just, to go to any racetrack, it just be tough.
I watched him at Crawford County, not Crawford County, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. but I don't know, I think I broke something, or didn't make the feature. And the back stretch of Silo Springs was like a dirt bank going up, just a cut dirt bank. With a chain link fence at the top, and everybody stood next to the chain link fence and watched. And I was standing there and Larry come off turn 2, caught that dirt bank, went clean to the top, the right rear at the top of the dirt bank, on the gas, showering all of us with rocks. Never checked the throttle and hit the front straightaway and passed, hit the back straightaway and passed the car. And won the feature. And we were at Hardy's afterwards, and then watched Larry, and he got 2 different shoes on. Got racing shoes on, but they're 2 different colors. I said, Larry, did you forget to change one shoe? Nah, he said they both wore out. He said I had a couple of pairs. He said I just picked the 2 good ones and put them on. And that's just the way Larry was.
Yeah.
Walked up there and ordered him a simple cheeseburger. I said, what about running all up on that bank on the back straightaway? And he said, did I do that? I don't remember that. It was just like, it's no big deal.
He might have been lighting a cigarette at the time.
He might have been. I'd watch him at Lebanon. On a caution, he'd be driving around, you'd see him sitting there smoking that cigarette, and you'd see him go like that. You better get ready.
You better get on the gas.
He's getting ready to get on the gas.
You know, and I don't know in this area, and no disrespect to him, but I don't know that I ever saw anybody that worked traffic quite like he did in a light bulb.
He worked them with the front bumper.
To me, Larry Phillips was the best racer in the United States.
That's always been my
opinion.
I've heard other people say that too.
He's the best racer in the United States. Bloomquist, Moyer, none of them hold a light to Larry Phillips. He didn't have the notoriety of them. He was before their time.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really travel out like a lot of them guys, but he was that good.
A lot of the stuff that made Bloomquist and Moyer and stuff is technology and the stuff that you could buy at that time. I think Larry was probably early enough that what he had, he developed and built a lot of it himself. And Bill will tell you this, when Bill started, you could out-money a lot of people, or you could out-product, you could have a better car and better shocks and stuff. But now, or when I quit even, that far back, when I quit, it got to where everybody that's got money has the same knowledge and the same technology, and which is that way now for sure.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it was a lot about drivers then, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it now is technology too, where in those days the technology wasn't there, and a man that was tough a lot of times win a race. 100 lap race, it was a lot of guys couldn't last 100 laps.
We won that MLRA championship in 1991 with a motor I put together in a milk barn. The cylinder heads were done by my neighbor down the dirt road, and everybody swore I had a better motor than they had. I mean, it was homemade stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until after, in '92, we moved down here, and Russell Baker was going to sponsor us with engines. And he didn't have one he could get ready in time to go to Florida. He said, can I take that old motor of yours and freshen it? And he said, if anything happens to it, I'll fix it. But he said, I'll freshen it for you if you'll run it in Florida. So he took it and freshened it, and the boy that done the cylinder heads had actually went to work for Russell Baker. Over the winter, when I moved to GRT, he went to Baker's. And Russell called me a couple of days later, and he goes, you cost me $1 an hour. I said, how come? I said, what do you mean? He said, that motor of yours. I said, what's wrong with it? He said it made, I think, 3 or 7 more horsepower than any motor I've ever had on the dyno. He said, I had to give the Gase $1 an hour raise.
Yeah, and the Gates is the one that went to work.
He worked for Russell 2 or 3 years, and then he worked for, I think, Hendricks Motorsports through all 7 of Gordon's championship. He was over the head department there.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, he was.
Bill's got a lot of connections with people.
And Russell was a great guy.
Russell was.
Very knowledgeable.
Good guy.
Very nice.
I never done anything with Russell.
He was a very nice individual.
I rented from Russell. Rented motors. First weekend out, I won $600. Come back and he called me and he said, well, I don't know how well this is going to work out. And I said, give me a little bit more time. Next weekend, won $12,000. He called me, he said, I believe we're gonna be all right.
You tell he's on a percentage basis, couldn't you?
We were talking one day and he said, how much oil pressure that motor got at the flag stand? And I said, Russell, I ain't got a clue. I ain't got time to look at the oil pressure. And they were his motors, I was renting them. And he said, you don't ever look at the oil pressure? I said, I do in the pits. I said, I ain't looking at it on the racetrack, I'm racing. He said, well, I guess that's what the oil idiot light's for. And I said, no, that's to count how many laps are left and see if you can make it.
I never rented a motor. First thing we done, whenever I got ready for my first motor, we went to Clark's. Got a custom. Got a custom. Bill was on customs then. I think all three of us went, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. We went over there and got me a motor. 26,000 right in there, I believe, so I give my first 360.
And that was the best you could get?
At that time it was.
It was the
It
best
sure
little
was.
motor
Yes,
you could
indeed.
buy.
Yeah. Everybody was on them just about. A lot of people was running custom stuff back then.
What is it that, and you mentioned that, what is it you see, everybody's running this one year, then everybody's here, and what causes the roundtable of events, sir? And it's not just with engines.
It's not
You see
just
that-
winning races. I'd say winning races, but of course winning races with whatever you're winning with sells. You know that. I mean, GRT was on top, and, you know, and then Rocket's been on top forever now. Of course, there's some others that's very competitive with them now. They're not on top, I don't think, anymore, but they probably sell more cars than anybody, I believe.
Russell Baker said it pretty good about motors and cars. He said the best motor out there won't make a bad race car good, but he said a good race car will make a mediocre motor
Yeah.
look great.
That's true.
Cause he'd give me the motors occasionally, he'd give me a bunch of old parts he had, you know, kinda oddball try and stuff. And he'd say, he'd put it in the car and he said, if you want a race or two, we'll sell that thing. And he'd say, he'd go out and sell them. I mean, they were good stuff, they just weren't state of the art motors.
His motors, I ain't saying had the most power, but his motors was very drivable.
They were good drivable motors.
Yeah. And
You could win races with them.
that's one thing on the dyno that we've all experienced through the years. It ain't always the one that makes the most power. Everybody thinks the most power is gonna win the race, but like Bill said, they don't always win the race. You gotta have the combination go with it
You know,
nowadays.
you gotta make that stick too. I mean, just because
Yeah.
you got a lot of power don't mean you burn the tires off of it, you're not gonna do any good anyway.
And running the classes that I run now, of course, that's just like our IMC stock cars that we ran this year. 5, 10 horsepower may not make a difference in those cars, but they're so competitive and so close. 15 to 30 makes a big difference.
Right.
That's what I've learned these lower class cars where we're dealing with 400 horsepower in that age, you know, in that era to 425, something like that. That makes a big difference. And they're, you know, 3,000 pound cars. We race them at 29.
And you know, we
50.
got now where shocks are such a
Oh, I'm
big
telling you.
thing. I mean, you need thousands and thousands of dollars to put shocks on a car. What was it like when you first started running late models? I mean, were the shocks that big a thing back then, or was that just something that nobody really looked at that close to at that point in time?
We won Muskogee Oktoberfest in '91, 10,000 win. I think that was the first 10,000 west of the Mississippi River. And everybody was there. And we won it with a homemade motor and a car we built in the shop. I'd have actually put half a front clip on that car in the barn. And we won it, and Scott Kaiser was there, Kaiser Manufacturing. He worked for AFCO at the time. And he come over and he said, we're gonna build shocks at AFCO. He said, what kind of shocks have you got on this car? And I said, I think there's a Pro on the right rear and a Carrera on the right front. And I said, man, Monroe on it somewhere. I said, in the left front, I straightened in the trailer hitch before the feature. The shaft was bent.
Shocks have come a long way.
And he looked at me and he goes, I think I need you to run our shocks. And I never bought a shock from AFCO in my life. We ran there. I think we had their first set of steel shocks, the second design steel shocks, the first set of take-apart shocks, the first set of aluminum shaft shocks, the first set of titanium shaft shocks, first set of adjustable shocks. We had first set of gas shocks. We had all that stuff. I mean, he'd send me shots, we'd race, overnight them to him, he'd test them. He said, win or lose, I gotta know what they're doing. He'd overnight them back and we'd put them back on the car and race. And that's when he finally started building the Integra brand at Port City at the time, where he was buying. I'd call him and I'd say, "Do I need to be on them shocks?" He'd say, "When it's time for you to get on these shocks, I'll call you." And it was like, he built them for like a year or so before he called me and said, "It's time for you to get on these shocks."
But like on the chassis, you see this year it's one company and next year it's another company. What causes the carousel there? Is it the grind and the stress of staying on top of the technology and people just, manufacturers get tired, or what causes the carousel?
Manufacturers get tired. I'm gonna
They're
say
complicit
that.
in what they do, I think.
Mark Richards, and I think that's his strong point. He works harder than anybody, right? He just point blank. He's nonstop. He don't think about nothing but racing.
He's working really hard this week.
You tear something up?
No, he got outrun by Longhorns last week, so he's working really hard this
Yeah, and I
week.
mean, he will. He'll dig.
But you know, you see, in the park, you see a good chassis come along and it's dominating, and you think, well, you know, they're gonna be on top of the game for a while. It's like because of the investment and everything to make, and then a year and a half down the road, they're struggling to make shows. And I can see where the grind would be, trying to stay on top of the technology and everything.
The money, golly, the money them boys spend just in technology,
Yeah.
you know, it's unlimited on what they spend, but they got to stay there.
Right.
And I
It's
don't
kinda like-
know
and
what all
it's-
Mark's got, but he's got a lot of different things that
But it's
these
kind
other
of like
chassis builders
Bill
don't
was
have.
saying there a while ago about shocks. You know, this day and time, you know, he's trying shocks for APCO. They may have 50 people out there trying shocks for APCO right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how times have changed where, you know, they've got so much that they're trying to figure out. And if you don't stay ahead of the game, then somebody's going to pass you.
Well, and we're on a set of Integras with my IMCA stock cars, what we were on last year.
I'm gonna say Richard spends more money testing, practice sessions and testing than the average regional racer's budget for a year. He works that hard at it and tests that much. He said, it's like he said,
That's true.
I said, man, I said, the XR1s are high when they first come out with them. He said, you don't understand how hard I've worked on that. He said, I'm gonna get paid for what I've done.
Yeah.
Certainly. But, you know, an example was, you know, Barry Wright. You know, over the years, you know, you've seen his cars, you know, be at the top, and then you don't hear anything out of Barry for a while, and then they're back, and then, you know, and I guess there's a period of time that you gotta rest.
I don't know if
Or
it's
what?
that. And part of Barry's, I think, is occasionally you just have a group of people at jail. Like Barry and Billy Moyer got together once. And both very good.
Mhm.
Barry's a very good crew chief, good racer, hard worker. Moyer's as good a racer as ever was. They were terrible. I don't ever know. If they won a race, I don't
know if they ever did.
We're terrible. And they didn't stay together very long. But I think, and I'm not saying they didn't get along.
Right.
But it's just at certain times,
Chemistry.
like Rumley and Davenport, when they were together that one year, it was like they were unbeatable. I think it's just sometimes people gel as a team like that, and it works.
Well, you've been different crew members through the years and stuff, and that's easy, yeah, it is true.
Yeah, and I seen that even in I was so hands-on and afraid to let most of my guys do anything.
Very anal.
Yeah, really.
Tell us, Johnny.
Believe it or not.
We was changing the motor at West Plains one night. I felt like the motor was flat. It didn't feel good, so I told him we was changing motors between the heat and the feature. We got about 3/4 done, and Johnny just looked at him and said, you know, he's just doing this to see if you guys would do it.
Because my motor was flat too, because my racetrack was hooked up.
It wasn't a motor either.
Yeah, I think changed motor in like 27 minutes.
Mhm.
And people helping I didn't even know.
Well, I'd like to know how many times we changed motors at the racetrack like that.
Was that a norm for for y'all to carry an extra one you just to change if, you know, how far did you have to travel to be able to put that other motor in that trailer to go? I mean, if you were just going
we had two motors, two spares. in the
two
truck
spares
time.
all the time.
We had, a lot of times we'd have a little motor and a spare big motor in case you needed a spare little motor. Or you might need that super motor so you could
Most
run a
times-
race on the way back.
Yeah, most time we run our little motors when we left. Unless we knew we was going to a big racetrack, we put our big motors in. I always carried enough stuff with me. I had pretty well everything in my trailer with the exception of a chassis for the car.
I had
We carried a
everything.
spare rear end, everything to build everything that we needed because we were so far from home.
Far from home, right?
But of course, you know, we always, through the years, and the people that we knew and everything, we always went to somebody's shop when we were there. If we was over around Knoxville, we was always over at Skip's place over
Ralph
there.
Curtis.
Ralph Curtis and stuff. And, God, we worked on, at all different racers.
And they was always overnight freight.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, and you said something right there that makes me think something. And then looking at Edwin over here, when you're talking about overnight freight, Edwin's got on a shirt.
This
And
is a
it says-
vintage.
It says Johnny
this
Bird,
is a
and it's got
vintage
Bill Frye
Johnny
on there.
Bird shirt.
All right. Now, overnight freight. Now, y'all would sell out T-shirts and have to overnight them too.
Bill would sell out some nights. We sold, I don't know how many, in the pig barn in Farley, Iowa. And they would overnight shirts the next day. And it could be summertime, we didn't have no shirts except sweatshirts, just sitting there, we'll sell them.
We pulled in, was it Farley or was that the part that was?
That was Farley in the big barn.
We pulled in and there wasn't no place to park. I was late. And I looked and it was like, well,
Glad
you
you
could
had
pull up in that barn. So I just pulled up in the big barn and parked the truck because it was too long anywhere else. Went half of it up in the big barn. And I don't know if it was a big barn, but it was a barn. It didn't smell like
It's
this.
a big barn.
And then Burton comes in. It was the first night he bought a new S&S 53-foot trailer in the feeder built. Here he comes through and knocks all the wires down.
Just
all the
a
way
telephone
through.
wires. They was too low.
And I think we won the feature, beat Jack, Pierce, beat Bob Pierce for the feature, and sold all them shirts in the pit barn.
Those good salesmen.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Johnny, we didn't have no mediums, Johnny'd say the larges are small.
Those good salesmen.
He'd say they were $20 a piece or 2 for 40.
Where was the best racing in the country?
Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Summer Nationals.
Summer Nationals.
So if you had to run that, you weren't a racer if you didn't run the Summer Nationals. I loved it.
I called Melanie one time up there at the UMP Summer Nationals, is what it was. I don't know if I was in Farley, but I was up there somewhere in Illinois. I don't remember where we was at. I remember I was sitting up in the truck and I was so sick of racing. I called her and told her I had never been so sick of anything in my life. I'm coming home. She said, well, you're running West Plains tomorrow night. Me and the kids will come up and see you. So they come up and see me. And we done pretty good at West Plains. I got kind of pet back up a little bit. We left there and went,
Heasley?
No, I don't think we went
I think
Sunday.
we went to
It was
LaSalle.
Sunday. It was LaSalle, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, 'cause we had to drive 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
up there.
Needless to say, I come home Monday. I'd had enough Sunday. I had enough that Friday night.
Just don't care.
It wasn't smart
anymore.
enough to know it. And that UMP stuff,
And I loved
you drive, you go up there and you drive, and you'll drive by 4 racetracks. You'll drive 250 miles over here, and you'll race there, and they will water it out. I don't care if they have to borrow somebody's water truck. They're gonna put too much water on this racetrack because lake miles are there. And it's gonna be sloppy and nasty and muddy. And then when it dries, when it dries out a little bit, it's hammered out and hooked up, you're wide open. Hang on because it's only on the floor. It's just one of them deals. Every racetrack you go to. And then you'll drive back by 3 coming this way and come to that first one you passed the day before. And that's what you do. It ain't nothing that makes any sense like you go to this one and you drive the next one's 25 miles away and the next 20. No. You go all the way over here, like I said, 120 or 30 miles, and you'll drive back by 3 more, and then you'll go back to the farthest one. It's all over the place up there. And like I said, every one of them
Tony Izzo
is
said,
watered out.
Tony Izzo said, I said, why don't they just have here, 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 and here? He said, oh, the circus can only come to town so many nights a week.
I guess they're too close together. They're too close together, I guess. I don't know. Yep. I drove what was the old track there in Chicago that the group, the 2 guys that raced late models with us, and the dad owned that thing?
Izzo's.
That's Izzo's,
Yeah,
wasn't
that
it?
was
Yeah.
in South.
Yeah, that's where I drove your Rayburn at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was up there, we'd been up there practicing, I was in my GRT and everything. And I got out there, and I don't know, we'd been practicing pretty well, and he said, won't you drive this car? I don't want to drive it. Now, yeah, I'll drive this car. I get in, I'm a half second faster the first time I said it in his than I was in my GRT.
That thing
That
can
car would
fool
go.
you.
That thing was, it right racetrack, that old car was fast.
Johnny's theory of the Rayburn was, you was either winning the feature or watching it.
Yeah. There wasn't no in between.
Mm-hmm.
Over in Illinois, the mile. Did you ever run the mile racetrack over there?
We ran the mile. I ran a mile at Sedalia, Missouri, in the '90s, or no, in the '90s, I guess.
I've never run a mile.
Ran a mile at Springfield, Illinois.
Springfield, that's what I was trying to
Went to
think
the
of.
Coin Mile in Indiana. The first time I went to the mile at Springfield, I went out to hot lap and going down the back straightaway, warming the tires up. We were still under caution. My tear-offs blew off my helmet. And I thought, well, I guess you don't need tear-offs on a mile. And I never thought nothing about it. And when we got up to speed, the wind coming through the car would shake my head so bad you couldn't see. I mean, it was like you couldn't see the racetrack. And I thought, man, I can't do this. And I pulled in, we made us a big cowl out of duct tape and cardboard, and got the dash where it wouldn't shake my head going down the straightaway, so the tear-offs would stay on.
Yeah, I never get to run a mile.
And on those tracks, you're flying in a dirt car.
Yeah, you're 150 or better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fast.
Yeah.
And you had to drive in the corner. I went out there and had a guy with me from Chicago. Tom Giddis was with us, and he'd been there the year before with little John Provenzano, and he set a fast time. And I went out and hot lapped and come back in. He goes, "We gotta go down here and look at the racetrack." And I said, "How come?" He said, "You ain't going in deep enough." We went down there. We was at a telephone pole, and he said, "You're letting off right here." He said, "You gotta drive on down to that next telephone pole before you let off." I said, "Okay." So I just drove her into that next telephone pole, lifted and went around there, and I was 4th quick time. And I thought, I'm all right. Charlie Schwartz never cracked the throttle. He drove around there wide open.
Very few places you'll go in a late model that you didn't crack the throttle. Batesville, up here 1 year at the Topless. I never lifted up there. And the old car stumbled coming out of 2, and I ended up 3rd or 4th quick that year for the Topless up there. Never lifted up there. That's kind of hard to make a man do that, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, the older you get, the harder it is. Well, I was a little younger back then anyway, but it's tough to do.
It's against your, I guess against your frame of mind. You're so used to letting off the gas going in the corner. It's really hard to drive a car in the corner wide open and turn the steering wheel wondering if it's going to turn.
And not bind the car up.
Yeah, you can always throw it
Yeah, you
sideways.
can
and
throw
hold
it
wide open.
sideways.
You gotta
Check it
drive
out,
it.
but-
You gotta drive it through.
Yeah, you got to drive it.
And you mentioned Charlie Schwartz, and there's a lot of stuff out there about Charlie. What was it like? What was he like on the track?
We were at a Summer Nationals, and Charlie's racing, and he hadn't raced it. He'd kind of been out of it for a year or two. And we were, what was the name of that park we went to in Minnesota?
Owatonna?
No, on over there.
Park.
I don't know if it's a park or not. About halfway across Minnesota we was over there. And we was racing. And it's a nice racetrack. And I was running 3rd or 4th, and he just runs in and hits me so hard it knocked the tail over on the car. Spins me out and goes on. And the next day he walked by the car, we was putting it all back together at Cedar Lake. He walked by and goes, "Tore that in all the hell, didn't I?" He just kept walking. And I said something, he was talking to Steve Francis, and I said, "Man," I said, "what about him?" Oh, he said he don't even think nothing about it. He said his glasses fell down on his nose and he couldn't see you. And I never had any problems with him, it was just,
Those glasses fell down. Yeah. At least they had an excuse. Some guys don't need an excuse, do they,
No,
Jay?
no, sometimes they just can make an excuse.
What about here in Arkansas? Who was some of the toughest competitors here in Arkansas?
Warrior, Wendell.
Warrior and Wendell, you had to race them all. You had to race Billy Warrior everywhere you went in Arkansas. Everywhere, in the early nineties, everywhere I went in Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, you had to race Billy Warrior.
We raced him every weekend.
You had to race him. And we'd race him 2 or 3, sometimes 3 nights a week.
What about Wayne Brooks?
Wayne was before my time, a little bit. I raced with Wayne some, but he was on the downhill side as I was starting. Wayne's a good racer,
Oh, yeah.
Wayne's a real good racer.
right? Really good racer.
Still is.
Still is, they don't doubt about that. We all know
And
that.
I think was as good as anybody in his prime.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He had a fantastic late model career in the 70s and early 80s.
Now Poucher was tough at times.
Tommy Joe.
Was.
Tommy Joe Poucher.
He was kind of quitting when we was starting
Yeah.
also.
I was at West Plains in 1990, and it was MLRA Nationals, and he was explaining to me, of course, he always had that cigarette hanging out of his fingers. He was explaining to me, he said, Frye, he said, when you get in a good race car and it's good, he said, it just got that feeling. And he said, when you get that feeling, he said, once you get that feeling, you know that you can get that feeling back again. He said, you just got to get that race car back too. But he said, when you get that feeling, you'll know it. And I don't remember, I think I won the first feature, second. And then the second feature, they inverted. And I was passing Tommy Joe for fourth in the second feature, rolling him on the outside. I thought, Tommy Joe, there's that feeling right there. But that was the best advice he had at that time. He said, you'll have that feeling.
We've had that feeling, all of us have at one time.
My guys always told me, it didn't matter how much I won a feature by, I'd come in and say, if that car would have turned just a little better, I could have killed it.
Too tight, too
They
tight,
always did.
too tight.
Was that the big deal? You was always too tight, or did you ever come in and say, that thing's just so loose I can't even drive it? Or was it always on the tight side for you?
This may sound stupid, but it was very hard to tell if you was too tight or too loose. A lot of times you think you was too loose and you would real honestly be too tight and you was making it turn.
And that's a lot of people's issues that drive race cars. They'll come in all the time and I'm too tight. Well, and it's hard to convince, and it's hard for you to convince yourself, like Johnny says. When you drive that car off in the corner and it don't want to turn, a good driver's gonna make it turn. He's gonna make that race car turn, and then you don't know whether it's tight or loose. Or I say a good race car driver does, I guess, really. But you know, it's really hard to distinguish between the two. But now, when you're loose, you can generally tell if you're real loose.
Right.
But if you're too tight, sometimes you confuse that for loose because you break your car loose and make it turn. And I have that issue with, you know, myself.
Any kind
a
of
lot.
race car.
Any kind of race car.
If I'm too tight, I'm a 10th place car. If I'm too loose, I'm a 4th, 5th place
Yeah.
car. Now, Johnny Burton, early in his career, he kept telling me that he was too loose getting in the corner. And I said, no, you ain't too tight. No, I ain't, I'm loose. It's sideways, sliding in. I'm too loose. So I took the right front brake off his car. So it turned when he got the corner. 2 weeks later, he said, you know, I was too tight getting in the corner. He said, it'll turn going in now without the right front brake on it.
The GRTs, I was always under the impression, and everybody's always said, you turn them cars with the backing.
You did? I didn't realize it. And I think that's when the early 90s, when I won so many
Turn
races
one
on cars, I didn't listen to anyone else. I didn't go around and try to figure out what everybody else was doing. I just made my car correct. And I probably had mine so much freer than everybody else, I could roll through the corner. If there was any dirt ring around the bottom, I could roll by them and pass them.
That was the goat ring.
The goat
Yep.
ring, they call it.
I
Johnny
never run
Barnard said-
four-wheel brakes on a lake mile, always three-wheel brakes.
Donnie Barnard said he was running the bottom at Fayetteville, and I passed him in the grass.
That makes it kind of bad, you think you're on the bottom and somebody's under you.
What do you do for the people at home? You go somewhere, you go out there and you feel like you're slow, and there's actually somebody that's really, really fast. What are the first things that you're gonna go to change to try to get faster?
We raced one night in Prestonburg, Kentucky, that old horseback. You ever go up there?
Yes, yes.
And it was beautiful facility, but it was like you were digging new dirt all night. And I wasn't any good. C.J. Rayburn come over to me on full feature and said, Bill said, come on, alcohol. Reckon we can talk them into a fuel stop? And I said, I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I said, I'm gonna run a few laps and pull in. He said, how come? I said, I'm terrible. I said, I put every spring I got on the car and I ain't no better. So we changed everything. He said, Frye, I'm gonna give you some advice. He said, you've been running races all over the country. He said, put that car back like you won that race last week. Put it back just exactly like it. He said, you'll be in the front. We went from the rear to second or third, and a tie rod fell off. We pulled in and put it back on. We went to the rear, come back to second or third and got hot. Pulled in, we pulled the hood off, cooled it off with water. Went to the rear and was running second, getting ready to pass Bloomquist and got hot. Motor started getting hot and filled the radiator full of dirt. And I backed off and started running half throttle in the last 5 or 10 laps, just so I wouldn't burn it up, and ran second. And the car was just exactly like we raced it everywhere. He was as right as right. We would just, I guess, put ourselves out of condition, out of position to win.
And that's what I've always thought. A few times, I know y'all seen it too, just like you said, racers, we have a tendency to overthink and what we're gonna do. And we get out there, and after we've run the heat race, you know, you're gonna go out there, and the next thing you know, you've changed everything on the
Keeps
car.
looking at me for something.
I know because I've seen it.
I was just fixing to say, there ain't nobody in here that changes more parts than I do. But you know what?
I've seen it, but
Sometimes I hit on a good setup doing that, but sometimes I've been better off to left my stuff alone. I kind of worked off that philosophy this year with my IMCA stock car, and we won the I-30 points championship down there.
And congratulations.
Well, thanks.
for that.
That's, you know, I didn't think that bad for an old guy.
No,
You
it's
know,
not.
It
gives
wasn't
me
bad for an
hope.
old guy. It was one down there was tough, but you know, things happen. It happened for a reason, I guess. But you know, I'll change things. But this year, I didn't change much. We changed a spring or a shock every now and then on that car, and we were. But in all, you know, we don't run the same racetrack every weekend, hardly ever, and we did this year. You know, I've always said if a guy goes to the same racetrack week in and week out, he should be able to win races. If he can't ride in the same old dead horse and not change stuff on it if he's not winning. You got to change stuff, but you need to learn what to change. You know, that always helps. And of course, Bill taught me the late model deal. I was just coming out of street stock cars and jumped in late model, and I loved them. I told all my friends, I said, this is a street stock car with 800 horsepower and tires that'll hold it. And then long and sorry to give on. Put that left rear shock behind and ruined the race car.
I've read a lot about it.
I'm serious. You drove it whenever we was, 300-pound left rear, 57. Like both front tires weighed the same. You was good wherever you went, you know. But, and it drove like, you just drive it through the corner, you drive in there, no hiking up, rearing up and everything. You had to be smooth. When I first started racing, Bill told me, and Johnny both, he said, you drive that car like there's an egg under that throttle.
Keep it straight, don't spin the
Keep
wheel.
it straight, don't spin the tires, and you'll be good. And that was, you know, that was some of the best advice I ever got when I got in late model. But like I said, that was whenever we was shocking the front, everything stayed calm down, and you drove the car and kept it under you, and you was fast when you done that. Went up to Batesville, first started out, the program was real good. First half of Tampa show I won, I don't know, we done pretty good in it, run up toward the front and everything. And whenever we started, this first 100 lap was a fat boy that run here now, I'm telling you. And we went green all the way through lap 47 or 48. I didn't have a headrest in my car. Next 100 lapper I run, I had a headrest in my car. Bumpy was with me then, and he come over the radio and he said, "You okay?" I couldn't even say anything. I was give out. I was fighting, holding my head up, staying in the seat. You know, 100 laps, and we'd run 47, and suckers just wide open up there at Batesville. I said, yeah, I'm gonna be out. I'm good. Maybe we'll have about a 10-lap caution here before we start again. But that was back. I really enjoyed the lake miles whenever they were calm and cool and everything was, you know. But everything changed.
Yeah.
When it got to where they hiked up on the left rear, it was just one of them deals. I hated to drive one then.
You know, before we go, I want to say something about Johnny Burton. I watched Johnny start out driving late models, and I guess the first car you had was probably a limited late model. Is that not
Yes,
what
limited late.
And I always thought that Johnny Burton was a quick study for the late model. I really did, and I maybe Johnny reversed this, but I think it's the first year that you raced. There was going to be I think it was the NCRA was racing in Little Rock on Saturday night, and BB was running on Friday night and ran a late model show. And you were there that year in the old purple car, and I think you ended up running the top 10 down there that night with some pretty great regional drivers in the area.
Run better than I should have.
And it was easy to watch and go, Johnny Burton's going to be a good late model driver. One of these
Well, he
days.
started.
He may have got it out of first gear.
And
He started there. That's the thing.
well,
He got
he
started
was,
there.
you know, he was there with an old, I guess back then, those were stock stud cars.
Yeah, but it was a good car.
But it was a good car.
It was a good car.
But to be out there with the caliber of people that you were out there with, and to run in the top 10 that night down there was just, I've always remembered that race, and I always remember you running the top 10 down there in that car, and that just always, for a lifetime, has impressed me. And then to watch, you know, you go on to, you know, to the late models and do what you done, I just always thought you was a good study of the sport.
How many races did you win at Centerville before you figured out it had second gear?
Well, I don't know. I won 4 or 5.
Hey, you got to start
He said when I
somewhere.
got in the right gear, they didn't have a chance.
I've got to pick on him a little bit here. Now, you're talking about his first and being a fast learner. You remember what he called you and told you that night from up there at Batesville when he drove that street stock car of mine the first time he ever drove around Batesville?
He told me it felt like he was pulling a trailer.
Well, he said, Frye, he said, hell, I said, I get off in the corner. He said, I let off. He said, them kids just passed me on both sides.
Both sides.
I kept telling him, John, you can't let off getting in the corner up here. This ain't a lake mall. You got to drive around there on throttle over these cars up here. Yep, that's picking on him a little bit. That's the first time he did a street stock car.
They sure wore me out.
Yep. He told Frye, he said, they're passing me on both sides when I go in the corner.
Oh, well, guys, I tell you what, we've enjoyed this hour, and we appreciate y'all letting us take up an hour or so of y'all's time tonight, and Bill for staying late tonight. And like I said, we want to appreciate Edwin Wells and Johnny Burton and Bill Frye. I mean, some great legends in our sport here in Arkansas.
I want to thank Melanie for bringing that chili.
And I
Yeah,
was
chili.
fixing to do that. We're going to thank Melanie Wells for bringing some great chili and all the fixings to go with it tonight. And it's just been a great, enjoyable evening. And we want to thank our sponsors before we get out here tonight. Chambers Bank, 26 locations in Arkansas. Shaw Race Cars in Batesville, Arkansas. True Grit Auctions, best of the best in the River Valley. And Western Petroleum Company over in Plummerville, Arkansas. And Heath, where are we going next week?
Next week we'll be at Hoyer's Shop Foreplay in Plummerville. We'll have Scotty Freeman and Hoyer will be there, and
Jimbo Freeman.
one of his buddies, old Jimbo, is going to be
Oh,
there.
man. Nobody else get to talk. Jimbo, that'll be the Jimbo show. Y'all be sure to watch.
And I think
And,
Wesley Wise
Wesley
is going to
Wise,
come over
yeah.
and join us, talk a little about
The track.
the Central Arkansas Motor Speedway. So should be a good show. So
Yeah.
I'm Bill Gilkey for Heath Tate, Bill Frye, Johnny Verdon, and Edwin Wells. And not to forget Aaron Gilkey, our production manager. Without him, we wouldn't be on the on the air every week.
He's the man behind the camera.
He's the man behind the camera there. And like I said, from all of us, thanks everybody out there in Arkansas. And we'll see you back next Tuesday night from Plummerville, Arkansas.